of serving conservation and the community. I'm Bill Montgomery. I'm president of the Land Trust, and we will begin with a brief business meeting. So the meeting is called to order. Secretary David Campbell will review the minutes from the 2010 annual meeting.
Thanks, Bill. Welcome, everybody. What I have in front of me is the meeting minutes from last year's annual meeting, which was held February 8th, 2010 at Anthony's Lake Club. And we need to read these into the record, basically, because it's part of running this organization. Bill Montgomery called the meeting to order at 6:40 p.m. David Campbell read the minutes from the February 8th, 2009 meeting. They were approved. Treasurer John Tickner presented the 2009 financial report. Income was $65,251, and expenses were $60,807. So net income was $4,444. Total fund balances were $32,256. Cheryl Rankowski from the nominating committee presented nominations for 3-year board of directors terms. David Gropper, additional 3-year term. Royal Ruffles, new 3-year term. The nominees were elected. Also, Cheryl presented nominations for 1-year officer terms. President Bill Montgomery, Vice President Michael Marcus, Secretary David Campbell, and Treasurer Grant Winthrop. The nominees were elected. Bill presented a PowerPoint program of the 2009 accomplishments and opportunities for growth. In land protection, we developed written criteria and defined a process for selection. We identified priority properties and identified the long-term goal to protect 1,000 acres in Danbury. The land management area established a detailed database on all properties in a 2-phase project. Goal is to identify issues and create plans for stewardship of each property. We will seek funding for 1 habitat restoration project. Organizational development. Completed the first organizational assessment, developing policies and procedures for greater accountability and better management. Developed a succession plan for the Office of President. Building capacity and awareness, raised over $65,000 in 2009. The fundraising gala contributed over $20,000. Membership mailing campaign and process is yielding greatest increase ever. Working to increase awareness, especially in the business community, through newsletter, website, volunteers. In summary, Bill indicated that there were significant accomplishments, and he commended the leadership, other members, and others who provided support. He added that the 2010 opportunities for growth were ambitious, and that the Land Trust remained faithful to its mission to protect Danbury's natural areas and quality of life. Bill thanked the leadership and asked them to stand and be recognized, including the board of directors, executive director Sharon Donosky, and volunteer coordinator Amber Edwards. Secondly, he recognized and thanked Director Emeritus Jack Murphy, longtime director and president, and former board members Barbara Starr, John Kazahowski, Noel McCary, John Murphy Jr., and Joan Stapleton, all of whom continue to support the Land Trust. Thirdly, he recognized and thanked conservation easement donors Royal and Cindy Ruffles. Finally, he recognized and thanked State Senator Mike McLaughlin, State Representative Jason Bartlett, and Common Council members Joe Cavo, Phil Curran, Dwayne Perkins, Paul Rotello, and Don Taylor. Bill called attention to table displays and other exhibits. He expressed appreciation to those who are already members and indicated that we enjoy having others join. He added that memberships and additional donations mean a lot, and that members can have the satisfaction of knowing that they are a vital part of protection of Danbury's natural areas and quality of life. Meeting was adjourned at 6:15 p.m. Thanks.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, indicate aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Minutes are approved. Vice President and Chairman of the Finance and Fundraising Committee, Michael Marcus, will present the financial report.
Thank you. Grant Winthrop, who is our treasurer, can't make it today, but I hope he's someplace warm, at least. I'm not sure. We have here the comparison between 2009, 2010. On income, we had a 1% increase in income, which was $66,130. Expenses decreased down to $56,839. Our net income has increased by 109%, whether a lot of corporations would like to see that. $9,290, and our current fund balance is $42,024, which is a 30% increase in our fund balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I'd like to recognize now all the Land Trust leadership, and as I call the name, I'll ask that you stand and remain standing. First of all, from the Board of Directors, David Campbell, Michael Marcus, Mike Cunningham, Amber Edwards, Mary McConnell Meechan, and Camilla Warden. Our Executive Director, Sharon Donosky, our Graphic Designer and Website Manager, Nicole Griswold, and our Administrative Assistant for the past 4 months, Karine Roach, at the back there at the sign-in table. Let's give them all a hand. They do a really good job. Next, I'd like to introduce one of our Directors Emeritus, our Grand Matriarch, Monique Weedell, one of the founders of the Land Trust. She was a long-time board member, long-time president of the Land Trust, and with her husband Phil, donated to the Land Trust in 1999 what is still today the largest parcel ever. So Monique would like to say a few words.
I don't know, I've never used one of these. The first thing I want to do is to salute Bill. Bill has brought this land trust in the very well-known phrase, the 21st century. And I just want to say that over 40 years ago, we suddenly saw a light. There was someone called Virginia Welch who wrote for the News Times, and she wrote an article about this extraordinary concept of saving land, where people could give land. It really inspired us. And after that, there was a wonderful committee and a very vital young president, like Roberta Calhoun, who volunteered. And I think we had 25 members, and I think we had $75, and we had a pencil and paper and an occasional telephone. And that's how this started, and we were called the Swampfield Land Trust, which was a great asset, because when we went to the Land Trust, the annual Land Trust Bureau meetings, everybody would see the label Swampfield, and they would come running up, wonder whether we were alligators or turtles, and then they would say, where is it? And we would say Danbury, and they would say, not Danbury, there's no land. So anyway, it now, thank goodness, is the Land Trust of Danbury, which is appropriate. And again, I salute Bill, and I salute the future of this land trust. Thank you.
We can always count on Monique to be very eloquent. The other Director Emeritus, Jack Murphy, was planning on being here, but I don't see him anywhere at the moment. Next, I'd like to introduce the board members that stepped down in 2010. So I'll ask them to stand and or wave. Gary Gillen, David Gropper, Royal Ruffles, and Cheryl Rakowski. I'd like to thank them very much for their service, and all of them continue to serve in big ways, as you can see by their presence here today. So thank you very much. Other board members, I know Barb Starr is here because I talked with her. There she is, trying to hide way in the back. Jack Kozahowski was planning on being here, but I don't see him at the moment. But Barb, thank you for your continued service and your great loyalty. Next, I'd like to recognize conservation donors, Royal and Cindy Ruffles. They contributed the first conservation easement in the land trust history back in 2007. 17 wonderful acres of old family farmland. And 2 weeks later, Royal's brother and his wife put a conservation easement on another 19 acres across the road. And that was one of the highlights of my time as president. So I'd like Royal and Cindy to stand. In addition to our speaker, there are a couple of other conservation officials here. Kevin Case is the Land Trust Alliance Northeast Regional Program Director. Amy Patterson is the Executive Director of the Connecticut Land Conservation Council. We were expecting several government officials. I see a few, but not all of them. The mayor, I don't see at the moment. Director of Planning, Dennis Alpern, I don't see at the moment. In the City Council, I do see Paul Rotella. Tom Saudi thought he might be here if he could get out of babysitting. I don't see him. And Paul, I don't see any other council members. Do you?
That may be it. Yeah. Pardon? That may be it.
You're a great representative. Thank you. You were here last year, too. You're very faithful. State Senator Mike McLaughlin was planning on being here. I don't see him. State Representative Dan Carter is here. I talked with him. Dan, thank you very much. And finally, from the staff of Congressman Chris Murphy, we are expecting Megan Forgione. I haven't spoken with her, but there she is in the back. Thank you very much for being here. 2010 was a very exciting year, so I'd like to briefly review our major accomplishments. The photo that you just saw there is the entrance to the 108-acre preserve off of Long Ridge Road, the largest piece which Monique and Phil contributed. The accomplishments that I'll cover are for our 5 major strategies, and each strategy represents one of our committees. For land protection, our goal still is to permanently protect 1,000 acres in Danbury. In November, we signed an agreement for the first purchase of property in the Land Trust 40-year history, and the agreement is to purchase it over the next 3 years. It's a highly desirable, beautiful woodland property. It abuts one of our West Reading Road properties, and it houses part of the Eyes Trail and Greenway. The landowner is Bob Rusko, so I'd like to ask Bob to stand. working with Bob over the last few years to put this deal together has been delightful. In addition, in recent years, we worked with the city to protect 192 acres on the west side. And this deal was closed in October, and it represents the largest acquisition in the city since Terry Weil Park about 25 years ago. We continue to make significant progress on other opportunities, working with landowners and their representatives, and the three terms that seem to be most appropriate are relationships, patience, and perseverance. The next strategy, land management, our long-term goal is to provide stewardship of all of our properties. In 2010, a consultant completed a property management plan for 72% of our properties. The Long Ridge Road properties and the West Reading Road properties, that's 7 properties or 130 acres. In July, we had the outstanding services from a 3-day youth volunteer corps. And Amber Edwards, who was our volunteer coordinator, is now on the board of directors. In a few minutes will be elected to even higher heights. Put it together, did an extraordinary job. She provided extensive environmental education to, what, Amber, about 20 volunteers from the Youth Volunteer Corps, and they also did a lot of great work on our property. So that was an outstanding 3 days. In November, substantial removal of invasive exotics was done on our Wyatt property off West Reading Road. It was led by board member Camilla Warden and her members of her Camilla Warden Garden Design Firm, and also by Land Management Committee Chair Mary McConnell Meacham, and with volunteers from her firm, which is Boehringer Ingelheim. The other objective of more public access to our properties was advanced quite a bit by the donation this past year to the city of easements on 5 of our properties for the 15-mile Ives Trail and Greenway. Finance and fundraising, the second annual event was held in November, and it raised over $22,000. Also, we received grants from the Peter and Carmen Lucia Buck Foundation. I'm delighted that President Chris Buck is here today, and I ask him to wave. We remain extremely grateful for the extraordinary support from the foundation. And every time that I write to Chris, I say, we're going to make you proud of us, and I hope that we're doing that.
You have.
We also got other grants from this past year from the Missouri Memorial Foundation and from the Women's Club of Danbury, New Fairfield. 2010, we achieved the highest ever membership and also significantly improved the financial accounting procedures, the reconciliation process, and fiscal management. For organizational development, there were over 30 governance policies created, then approved by the board in June. And these are policies in accordance with the Land Trust Alliance standards and procedures. And also, the project was funded by a 2009 Land Trust Alliance Connecticut Challenge Grant. And we remain greatly indebted to Kevin Case for his support of that. Then in August, the board approved implementation of Conservation Track, which is a web-based conservation management database, and it will be particularly beneficial for our property records. And finally, community relations. In 2010, numerous radio and TV interviews, press releases, regular newsletters, nature walks took place, and also our website was improved significantly with the help from Gary Gillum and Nicole Griswold, and the pages viewed in 2010 were up 98% over the previous year, so it's certainly bringing in the desired traffic. In summary, there have been some really significant accomplishments, and I commend the leadership for that, our members, and others who support us. And we are faithful to our sole mission, which is protecting Danbury's natural areas and quality of life. And having said that, and before moving on to the next section, I just noticed that our mayor walked in, so I'd like to introduce him. Would you be interested in saying a few words?
Microphone, sir, no problem.
This is Mayor of Danbury, the Honorable Mark Boughton. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. I'll be really brief. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. I have to tell you that I just left the Moose Charity Dip over at Lake Kenosha. An awesome use of our natural resources. And I got all kinds of comments, but I'm not going to go there. But anyways, I did want to stop by. First of all, thank you for your advocacy, your concern, your passion and compassion towards our natural resources in this wonderful city of ours. And, you know, as I traveled across the state last year, I had a lot of discussions and talked to a lot of people, and there's sort of three kinds of places to live in Connecticut, right? There's the rural area, beautiful towns like Ellington and places like that, which is very rural. And then you have the suburban area, places like West Hartford and other places that are around urban areas. And then you have your urban core areas. But here in Danbury, we have all three within our 44 square miles. It's truly amazing when you think about it, that you can be in sort of a rural area, being a suburban area, and be in the urban core here in our great city. So part of the charge, if you will, of this community is to protect our natural resources and protect our open space. I'm sure Bill's already mentioned to you, but just to remind you, this year we engaged really in a very comprehensive acquisition of the Farrington property, and we are in the process of developing a task force that will determine exactly how to utilize that property in the most efficient way and certainly the most caring way to make sure that it stays in its natural state, but also gives our residents access to new hiking trails, new areas that they can explore, potentially kayaking in a beautiful pond that is the headwaters of the Still River. This is the kind of work that we want to continue doing in this city as we work towards our goal of protecting 1,200 acres during my administration. So we're not quite there yet. We put about 300 to 400 acres under control, either through easements or through straight out acquisitions. We've got a 600-acre application in for the Lake Wabika property. That is a 3 to 4 year process we're waiting for, and then some other properties that we're looking at. So all in a nutshell, thank you for all you do. Appreciate it, and on with the meeting. God bless you. Thank you.
The next step is to present nominations from the nominating committee. First of all, nominated for additional 3-year terms on the board of directors are David Campbell and Camilla Morton. Is there a second to the nominations? Second. All in favor of electing those board members, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. They are elected. Nominated for 1-year terms as officers, President Michael Marcus, Vice President David Campbell, Secretary Amber Edwards, and Treasurer Grant Winthrop. Is there a second to the nominations?
Second.
All in favor of electing those officers, indicate aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. They are elected. So congratulations to all, and newly elected President Michael will present ambitious 2011 vision for the future.
First change in the administration. So we've got a load
microphones. For some reason, some guy by the name of Biden said you were vice president for 4 years, but I'm not sure Bill ever spoke to him. But I thank you. I thank you for your confidence in me and the other officers and board members. I think Bill has set a tremendous goal for us, and following him is not going to be easy. But let me tell you some of the things that your board has in mind for you. Number one, let's see, we're on the same slide, yes. A commitment to land protection. That's uppermost in our board's mind. And the second is a commitment to land management. To date, we've raised close to $40,000 towards the purchase of the Rusco property. We have a couple more years, 3 more years to raise the balance of it, but I certainly hope we will get that done much faster than that and go on to our next project. We're actively pursuing new properties. We can't speak too much about them, but and we also have a lot of hope on some other properties which we're not actively pursuing. Stewardship of our land. Bill went through quickly the adoption of land management practices. This board, under Bill's administration, and our executive director has put together a phenomenal set of objectives and practices, and we will be in full compliance with the national organization very quickly. In fact, Sharon gave me, as I walked in addition to the first really professional annual report, which I hope you all have, I see most of you have, a DVD of our practices and manual outlining everything, so new board members can't say they weren't told. Yes, but neither can old board members, actually. Raising fund for the land acquisition and land management is going to take up a lot of our time and effort. The important thing is that you can make a difference. A board is no more effective than its membership. So if you are not a member, please become a member. Hopefully you have received at the front desk a application, and don't be afraid of mailing it back or even giving it to us now with as large a check as you really want to do. We will appreciate anything. Again, we're going to support the Rusco property fundraising, and we need your help. We'll be looking for grants as well, but we have to show membership participation. We do need volunteers to help monitor the land parcels, and we have guidelines, so it's not a difficult project. It requires a couple of walkthroughs on nice days, and maybe in the spring and the fall, and do some checkoffs, and then we can put them in our records, and you can report back anything that you see. And volunteer to raise money. I think I've said that 3 times or 4 times now, if anybody's been counting. But it's an important function, and we're going to need everybody's help to do that. Bill? And you'll be seeing more things coming out of our board as we together work towards the vision of the future. Bill? Bill's gonna, okay, fine. All right. I have a few things to say about Bill. Number one, I can't follow Monique and make it sound half as good as she did. However, I do have some things here. I received this document from Jack yeah, sure, I can't even pronounce it. Kazahowski. You'll notice, by the way, he did sign it Jack K. I wonder if he can spell it, actually. This is for Mr. Conservation. A schedule snafu has kept me from attending today. I've asked Michael to read this parting shot during the quote changing of the guard. Hats off to Michael, he has big shoes to fill, to follow an act by a man named Bill. There's more. Okay. From the start of his reign, Bill was on a pace to preserve and protect Danbury's open space. From Swampfield to Roscoe Deals, he fought long and hard. His legacy in Danbury indeed will go far. He did all of this without compensation. His middle name, we think, is Mr. Conservation. His wife is not Polish, it is clear to see, except at the galas with Kazachowski. That's an in-joke. If you didn't go to the gala, not a chance. This annual meeting is born this year. It's a celebration to give Bill a cheer. There's more. I was just handed a proclamation from the Honorable Christopher Murphy, 5th Congressional District, Connecticut. Certificate of Special Recognition presented to the Land Trust of Danbury. Oh, okay. In honor of your 40th anniversary, your efforts to educate the community and conserve natural resources in Danbury are truly admirable. The longevity of your organization is a testimony to its strong bipartisan advocacy. The commitment from your members illustrates an outstanding passion for preservation. May the Land Trust of Danbury continue its service for years to come. Congressman Christopher Murphy. Dated February 19, 2011. He must have had a busy morning. Okay. Okay. In addition, we have, I have the honor of presenting to Bill a plaque in recognition of your outstanding dedication and commitment to the protection of our land, in honor of your extraordinary leadership of the Land Trust of Danbury, and with sincere appreciation for having made a significant difference in the quality of life in our community. Now I'd like to introduce Bill Montgomery, who is going to introduce our speaker.
You know, I didn't agree to any of this. It just goes to show you can fool some of the people some of the time. Thank you, Michael, and thanks very much to all of you. Rand Wentworth is the president of the Land Trust Alliance, Washington, D.C.-based land conservation organization that provides policy, lobbying, and training services for the country's 1,600 land trusts, including ours. He's been particularly effective in leading relationships with Congress and other parts of the federal government on tax incentives and other issues critical to conservation in our country. After he became president in 2002, he launched a nationwide committee to do an extremely comprehensive update of the standards and practices which are the guide for legal, financial, and ethical operation of land trust. And I will say our land trust promptly adopted those new standards and practices. Subsequently, he launched another nationwide committee to establish an accreditation process for land trust, and we expect to be accredited land trust in the near future. And quick aside, I just learned this morning that the Reading Land Trust just became accredited, and there are several representatives here, and I'll have to ask them to stand, but I know Jane is here, and Grant is a graduate of Yale University, and he holds an MBA in finance from Cornell University. I had the opportunity to meet Rand and hear him speak at 2 national rallies and 1 regional conference. He's a dynamic leader and an outstanding speaker. Please welcome Rand Wentworth.
Thank you, Bill, and congratulations on your leadership of the Danbury Land Trust. Michael, good luck. You've got big shoes to fill, and I know you'll do that beautifully. Sharon, I appreciate your leadership as Executive Director. And Monique, as the founder of this fine organization, a special day this must be for you to watch what a little dream 40 years ago has grown into. To the members of the board, past and current, and all the members of the Land Trust, congratulations on creating and now strengthening one of the oldest land trusts in the United States. The truth is, most land trusts got started in the 1980s and have grown from there, and Danbury got a little leg up on that, and 216 acres and many, many more to come. I'm going to start today, though, with a story from far away from Connecticut. High in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, there's the Roaring Fork Valley, not far from Aspen, surrounded by 14,000-foot snow-capped peaks. Back in the late 1880s, the McNulty family settled there to raise cattle. This is a tough place to earn a living. At that kind of elevation, the winters are long, the summers are short, the cattle are ornery, so are the people. Over the years, the McNulty family has held on, and Wendy and Gary McNulty now own the property with their 2 daughters. Ranching is hard work. You're digging ditches, you're repairing barbed wire and fences, you're getting cattle out of the cold when it's 20 below, and you're feeding them when there's drought and there's not enough grass to feed on. But the McNultys held on because they love their land. They love their land the way each of us here in Connecticut love our place. But for the McNultys, that love was tested in a serious way. Gary McNulty came down with Lou Gehrig's disease. You don't make a lot of money ranching, and the medical bills piled up. And as the medical bills piled up, the debts piled up, and the real estate developers started knocking on their doors and saying, you know, Wendy and Bill, we could make you millions of dollars if you'd sell out. And indeed, Aspen was sprawling, homes were being built, and in 1 year, 11,000 acres in that valley had been converted from family ranches to ski homes for the Aspen area. Well, things got worse. Gary's condition deteriorated. He lost the use of his legs, he lost the use of his hands. Wendy and her 2 daughters kept that ranch going themselves. Imagine this. The 3 ladies out there in 20 below winds. And Gary said, I don't want to sell this place. I love this place. I don't want to sell it. And they had the good fortune of having a land trust nearby. And they talked with the land trust. They said, here's the situation. We don't have any money. We have a lot of debt. But we don't care about the money. We just have to pay the medical bills. And the land trust went to its community and they said, what do you think? Do you want houses all on this ridge, or do you want to protect it? And the community rallied. They were able to go to the state and get a grant. They got a little grant from the federal government. The local community pitched in. And in the end, they presented an agreement, a conservation easement agreement, partial purchase, partial donation. And at that time, Gary McNulty had completely lost all motor control of his body. But using a high-tech eyelid motion detector, he was able to give his legal consent to protecting the farm with the movement of his eye, saying, I want this place protected forever. And the McNultys agreed in this transaction to donate $1 million of their land value that they could have gotten if they'd sold out for development. This kind of generosity of spirit, this kind of connection to the land is something that we all have. It doesn't matter if you grew up in the middle of the city in Manhattan, or if you grew up in, rural Connecticut on a farm. We all have some just innate love of the place that we are. Of the trees, of the stars, of the sun. It is in our human nature. It's also in our American experience. Now, there's a lot of talk about how America has been the country of exploitation. And Lord knows all the hills around here at one point were clear cut for charcoal or whatever. And there was a lot of mining. But at our earliest moment, even before the birth of this nation, as far as we know, the first private landowner who acquired land intentionally to see that it would be permanently protected was Thomas Jefferson in 1775. The year before he wrote the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson gazed upon the natural bridge outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, and purchased it. And he purchased it, at the time he purchased it, he wrote to a friend and he said, "It is impossible for the emotions arising from the sublime to be felt beyond what they are here." He later wrote, "I have no idea of selling the land. I view it in some degree as a public trust." Those words, public trust, and would on no consideration permit the bridge to be injured. Thomas Jefferson started in his own act a long history in this great United States, even as we conquered the frontier. From the wonderful writings of Emerson in Nature and Thoreau in Walden Pond, from the work of Frederick Law Olmsted and his design of Central Park and green spaces in cities across this nation, the work of Abraham Lincoln, who in the heart of the Civil War, as he was plagued with depression, signed an act for the first time setting aside land by the federal government to protect the Yosemite Valley. And again at Yosemite Valley some years later, in a historic meeting between John Muir, the wild-eyed, visionary, mystic poet of the Sierras, meeting Teddy Roosevelt, the tough Republican Rough Rider. The two of them met at Yosemite Valley, and we don't know exactly what they talked about, but we know that there was this commonality of a vision that there were parts of America that were so important that they could not, should not be developed for resorts, for housing, or shopping. Teddy Roosevelt went back to Washington, and during his administration, created 5 national parks, 51 wildlife refuges, then called bird sanctuaries, and 150 national forests, leaving a legacy of 240 million acres permanently protected by the federal government. Well, at about the same time, there was another historic figure, and that's really the birth story of the Danbury Land Trust. About 1890, the son of the president of Harvard, a man named Charles Eliot, read in the newspaper a great hue and cry about the prospect that the Waverly Oaks outside of Boston, these ancient 200-300-year-old oak trees, were going to be cut for a subdivision. He thought about it and he wrote in a letter to the editor proposing that the state would charter a private nonprofit that would hold land for public use and benefit, just the way a library holds books for public use and benefit, and a museum holds art for public use and benefit. And a year later, the first land trust as we know it in the United States was birthed, the Trustees of Reservation in Massachusetts. So over 100 years, while the state and federal governments were protecting land, land trusts slowly grew, very slowly. And as I said, it wasn't until the 1980s that the land trust movement really took off. But there are now some 1,700 land trusts like the Danbury Land Trust across this country. There are some 20,000 board members, 5 million member participants, and collectively we have protected 4 million acres across this country. Now think about this. Private local charities have now protected land the size of the state of Florida. This is extraordinary. This is an amazing accomplishment. Well, we are now faced at some very difficult times. I just flew up from Washington, D.C., and I saw Chris Murphy twice this week, sat with him in the East Room in the White House. He's a terrific leader in conservation. Please tell him we here at the Land Trust appreciate his leadership. But we have a fiscal crisis. I don't know what the political orientation is of the people in this room, but we can all agree that we can't continue to spend more money than we have. Years ago, during one of the darkest hours of the attacks on London in the Second World War, Churchill addressed the Parliament and he said, "Gentlemen, we are out of money. Now we must think." So I think our Congress recognizes we are out of money and now we must think. And I would like to tell you some of the conversations I've had with some of the new Tea Party representatives in Congress. I've said, I understand you don't like big government and you don't like big government spending, but what do you think about a local charity that's citizen-led, that respects private property rights, that uses local philanthropy, uses a small amount of the treasury to create a tax incentive that then leverages a large amount of private gifts that help to protect clean drinking water, good, safe local food, places for children to connect with nature, for families to recreate, and that brings a great economic benefit to local communities across the country. And the Tea Party representatives say that's exactly what we're for. And the Democrats say that's exactly what we're for. In fact, the tax incentive for the donation of conservation easements, the very strong enhanced tax incentive, last year we had 274 co-sponsors in Congress, a majority of the Republicans and a majority of the Democrats. These are not people willing to vote for it. These were initial co-sponsors. And I would say that this is probably one of the few issues in American public debate now where there is complete agreement that a private solution run by local land trusts to protect our natural resources is something we all agree on. So while the last century, I think there was a great day for the federal government and state governments. Money was available. We protected wonderful places through public acquisitions. This is your moment. We're a small, town-based, city-based land trust. But this is your moment. The eyes of the country are now looking at what can be done at the local community level. So this was an exciting week for conservation in Washington. Tuesday night, as I mentioned, I was with a number of members of Congress. We were celebrating that Congress actually extended the enhanced tax incentives, so local work by land trusts would flourish. We've got another year. If you're thinking about donating an easement, do it now. I don't know what's going to happen in the next Congress. This would be a good time to act. But it is our great hope because we heard both from the Republican leadership. Dave Camp, the new chair of the Ways and Means Committee, was there, Republican from Northwest Michigan. He said, I want to make this a permanent part of the tax code. And on the Democratic side, the Senate side, the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, Max Baucus of Montana, said, I want to make this a permanent part of the tax code. We had dozens of other members of Congress there. They all support the work that you're doing. But the next day, I was invited by President Obama to be at a small reception in the East Room of the White House, and was seated in the front row, once with Chris Murphy and others. And I was seated there not because I'm somebody that's important, but because I represent you. Because I represent and was the symbol of the citizens across this country, the 5 million citizens who are committed to protecting their lands locally. And what the president got up and said was, my America's Outdoors initiative is to get the right incentives, the tax incentives and the funding to help local communities do what they're already doing successfully, but to be able to do more of that. So from the Congress to our president, all eyes now are on land trusts. I think this is our great moment in history. As Churchill said, we are out of money, now we have to think. And I think our thinking will be local. In Washington, D.C., there is an expression that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And we learned that the hard way about 5 years ago when we weren't at the table and Congress almost took away our tax incentives. There were some problems with some governance issues with certain land trusts, and as a result, I promised the Senate Finance Committee that we would create a national accreditation program for land trusts. And Representatives Redding here today, congratulations on your work. I had to make a promise that we would have a third-party verification that land trusts have adopted the standards and practices, which the Land Trust of Danbury has adopted, and I'm delighted to hear that you're working towards accreditation. It was because we have said we're committed to excellent governance practices, excellent ethics practices, excellent professional and real estate practices, that we were successful in getting Congress to pass the expanded tax incentives that we all depend on so much. So we are now, and we meaning the Land Trust Alliance, and my colleague here who lives in Connecticut, Kevin Case, who's our Northeast Director, and 55 other colleagues, we are your representatives. We're here to provide the services, the training that help land trusts to be successful, and we are your voice at the table in Washington, D.C., so that we aren't on the menu. I want to just close by saying that the places that you know here in Danbury that you take for granted will always be woods, or will always be farms, or will always be vacant. We have this little illusion called the recession, and it seems like the pressure of development has gone asleep. But we know from the history of American demographics, and we know from the census, that there will be 100 million new Americans either born or coming to the United States between now and 2050. That means that there will be housing pressure and shopping pressure on every inch of this country that has access to water and utilities and roads. So just because it may feel slow now, this is exactly the time to have a vision for what your city, what you want your city to look like over the next 50 years. And the Danbury Land Trust is in a wonderful position to be the visionary that says, here's where we're going. this is what we want our community to look like, and to galvanize the funds and the political support to get there. Your leadership is essential. We've heard from the state, federal government, that they're looking locally for solutions. And now it's your opportunity, it's really your call to stand up and respond to that challenge. You follow in the footsteps. You here today on the board, you who are members of the Land Trust, follow in the footsteps of Thomas Jefferson, John Muir, Teddy Roosevelt, Admiral Leopold. Now it's your turn. Thank you very much.